So this is the Audi Q8. It's basically the sporty coupe version of their mammoth SUV, the Q7. Think BMW X6 or Mercedes GLE. Cars for people who don't want their SUVs to look too much like an SUV. You know, when you look at the Q8, it's actually really hard to believe that it is basically a Q7. I think Audi's design team have done a brilliant job of making it look completely different. Now, I'll leave you to make up your own mind about the styling, but people that I've shown it to have given an overwhelmingly positive response and seem to prefer it over the more divisive look of the X6. The Q8 is sleeker, shorter, wider and lower to the ground than the Q7, with slim lights and Audi's new 8-sided grille, while at the back it has a sloping roofline along with, oh Audi, not fake exhaust pipes. The flared wheel arches are reminiscent of the brand's Audi Quattro rally cars, and whilst I think the wheel arches and these big 22-inch alloys look absolutely great, my gripe really is that when the Q8 is fitted with the standard 20-inch tyres, the gap here is just too big, and it really pushes you into having to upgrade and spend the money in order to get this lovely look. It's also worth pointing out that whilst the base price for this car is £63,000, it's had a whopping £22,000 worth of extras added onto it, like the lovely alloys. One thing I do really like that I'm going to show you before we look inside though is this frameless door, which I think is really nice. Although Batch, Mr. Sensible, thinks it could be a bit of a safety hazard. Apparently that sharp edge could really hurt your eye. Inside, well, as you'd expect, it's refined and it's elegant and it's incredibly well built and all very Audi-ish. In fact, it's just like being inside their luxury saloon, the A8. It's incredibly difficult to find fault with the build quality, which of course, as you'd expect, is excellent. But I do personally find it all a little bit bland. And I'm not actually a massive fan of these dual screens, which I think are too fiddly to use when you're on the move. And also, they offend my slightly OCD nature because every time you touch the screen, it leaves a fingerprint and it drives me mad. One thing I am a fan of though is this. Audi's virtual cockpit digital display. It's controlled from here on the steering wheel. The graphics are absolutely superb and it means you have everything you need right in your line of sight. Another thing I'm a massive fan of is these seats. Oh my goodness me, don't get me started on the seats. They're so comfortable. I think they're quite possibly comfier than my bed with their lovely leather and all their quilting. But of course, they're from the extras list, so don't expect them across the range. When it comes to storage, there isn't a huge amount, but you get a couple of cup holders, a slim storage compartment hidden under the central armrest, a great sized glove box, and also really good sized door bins. Here in the back, well, the Q8 is wider than the Q7, which means that although there isn't the option of a third row of seats, you will easily fit 3 adults across here, or even 3 child seats. You also get a couple of Isofix child seat points here on the outer seats, and storage is really good. You've got good sized door bins, nets there on the back, whilst you've got power outlets and individual climate control for the back. Now, despite that rakish roofline, it's actually very spacious in here. Headroom is good, and as for legroom, well, the seat in front is set for Manos behind the camera, who's well over 6 foot. And look, there's stacks of room there, even if you are much taller than my 5'4". And of course, I can't get out of the back without mentioning the seats. Oh, these lovely quilted seats. They're so comfortable. Anyway, drag myself away I must to take a look at the boot. Now, when it comes to pure space, the Q8 is a little bit disappointing. It just isn't as practical as the Q7, although on sheer boot size it does trump the BMW X6. However, it's not the most usable of shapes because of that roofline. For example, I couldn't get my little boy's bike in here, which I would have expected to do. And another thing which I find really annoying is that, yes, I know I'm only 5'4", but in order to reach to the back of the boot, you have to push up against the back of the car. Not too bad on a day like this when the car is clean, very annoying when it's muddy or wet. While the setup is pretty much the same as the Q7, the Q8 definitely has a sportier feeling about it. The lower stance undoubtedly plays a part in that, and it feels more like a hatchback, less like an SUV behind the wheel. What I've been really impressed with is what a brilliant job the air suspension which is fitted on this model does in smoothing out any bumps and lumps in the road. This really makes for such a comfortable cruiser. And if you do want to personalise things, well, you can play around with the suspension setup just down here on the screen. And it's got everything from off-road to comfort to dynamic, which raise or lower the ride height appropriately. The first Q8s on sale are only fitted with this 3-litre V6 diesel engine, although there's a less powerful version of the same engine on the way, along with a 3-litre V6 petrol. Now, this 50 TDI uses a 48-volt electrical system to support a mild hybrid system, which shuts the engine down when it doesn't need much power, cruising down a hill, for example. And this apparently helps to make the Q8 capable of delivering a claimed 42 miles to the gallon. Okay, so let's give that dynamic setting it a go and see how this feels. And immediately it's lowered the height, you get some extra weight to the steering, while the suspension feels firmer and the throttle response is just livened up. And it is a really well balanced feeling with that quattro four-wheel drive grip adjusting to the power distribution according to where you need the most grip. You can definitely have more fun on a nice twisty stretch of road in this than you can in a Q7. But sadly you don't get an awful lot of feel from the steering, and the BMW X6 is without a doubt a more engaging car to drive. My other gripe is that while visibility is generally good, the chunky B-pillar does obstruct the view when you're trying to turn. And look, don't let those sleek looks fool you into thinking that this is a sports car along the lines of its stablemate the Lamborghini Urus, with which incidentally it shares a fair bit of its structure. But it can definitely offer you a lot more fun and makes far more of a statement than a standard SUV.